Circular breathing is a technique used by players of some wind instruments to produce a continuous tone without interruption. This is accomplished by breathing in through the nose while simultaneously pushing air out through the mouth using air stored in the cheeks. History. The technique was developed independently by several cultures, and is used for many traditional wind instruments. In the 13th century, Asian metalsmiths who specialized in gold and silver used circular breathing techniques for crafting various decorative and ornamental items. In crafting such items, craftsmen were required to blow continuously to the flame through a pipe with a needle-like hole, in order to make the hard metal melt or soften. From such necessity, craftsmen mastered a circular-like cycle of breathing, simultaneously inhaling through their nose while blowing without any pauses. The introduction of the circular breathing technique in the art of ancient wind players was a productive invention in its performing technique. Uses. It is used extensively in playing the Eastern Zurna, the Mongolian limbe, the Sardinian launadas, the Egyptian argal, the Australian didgeridoo, as well as many traditional oboes and flutes of Asia and the Middle East. A few jazz and classical wind and brass players also use some form of circular breathing, although many professional wind players find circular breathing highly useful. Few pieces of European orchestral music composed before the 20th century actually require its use. However, the advent of circular breathing among professional wind players has allowed for the transcription of pieces originally composed for string instruments which would be unperformable on a wind instrument without the aid of circular breathing. A notable example of this phenomenon is Moto Perpetuo, transcribed for trumpet by Raphael Mende from the original work for violin by Paganini. In 1997, a Guinness World Record was set for longest held musical note. Kenny G used circular breathing to sustain an E-flat on a saxophone for 45 minutes and 47 seconds. On February 2000, Van Birchfield set a new Guinness World Record for circular breathing, holding one continuous note for 47 minutes, 6 seconds, surpassing Kenny G's record. Mark Atkins on Didgeridoo Concerto, 1994, plays for over 50 minutes continuously. On Sunday, the 14th of May 2017, notable Nigerian saxophonist Femi Kuti broke Mark Atkins's record by playing for 51 minutes, 38 seconds, after successfully breaking Kenny G's record the previous week. 1. Method. Performing. The musician inhales fully and begins to exhale and blow when the lungs are nearly empty. The last volume of air is blown into the mouth, and the cheeks are inflated with part of this air. Then, while still blowing this last bit of air out by squeezing the cheeks, the musician must very quickly fill the lungs by inhaling through the nose prior to running out of the air in the mouth. If done correctly, by the time the air in the mouth is nearly exhausted, the musician can begin to exhale from the lungs once more, ready to repeat the process again. Essentially, circular breathing bridges the gap between exhalations with air stored in the cheeks, and extra air reserved to play with while sneaking in a breath through the nose. Learning. The usual first difficulty is to inhale through the nose while blowing out air stored in the cheeks. To some this may be a big hurdle. To others no problem at all. One can practice this anywhere anytime by holding a finger in front of a thin air stream out of the lips and listen to the wind sound. The next difficulty is to switch between cheek air and lung air without an unwelcome and uncontrolled jolt in the air pressure. One must learn to use the cheeks and the throat as a system of shock absorbance. A very simple method to practice this is using a thin straw to blow on the surface of a cup of water, and watch the depression that the airstream creates on the water's surface. The aim is to blow continually and switch between cheek air and lung air without any change in the depth of this depression. The traditional method of learning in Zurna groups is to have one elder player lead as the chanter, Zurna, and ask the younger players to hold the unchanging drone tone S. Professional Zurna groups may play non-stop for as long as the party lasts, and a drone tone may be held for the whole evening. This is possible thanks to the disc that the lip may lean and rest against, because the lip muscles that resist the air pressure are otherwise what get tired first. Instruments with circular breathing integral to technique. Musicians known for circular breathing: Sam Newsom, American jazz soprano saxophonist; Lenny Pickett, American jazz multi-instrumentalist, tenor saxophonist and musical director for the Saturday Night Live Band, former member of Tower of Power; Rahsaan Roland Kirk, jazz multi-instrumentalist; Harry Carney, baritone saxophonist and clarinetist, prominent member of the Duke Ellington Orchestra; Sonny Rollins, American jazz musician; David S. Ware, American jazz musician; Anthony Braxton, American saxophonist and composer; Roscoe Mitchell, jazz multi-instrumentalist; David Murray plays tenor saxophone and, on occasion, bass clarinet; James Carter, American jazz musician; Theodore C. Spasov, Bulgarian kaval performer and composer; Sharon Beserly, classical flautist; Paul Butterfield, American classic rock harmonica player; Bora Dujic, Serbian flautist and composer; Martin Frost, Swedish clarinetist; Kenny G, American smooth jazz saxophonist; Daniel Good, avant-garde clarinetist; Stephen Kent, didgeridoo; Irvin Mayfield, Grammy Award-nominated jazz trumpeter, composer and cultural ambassador to New Orleans; Rafael Mendy, Mexican virtuoso solo trumpeter; Sergei Narkaryakov, classical trumpeter; Evan Parker, free improvising saxophonist noted for his lengthy circular breathing excursions on soprano and tenor saxophones; Ned Rothenberg, multi-instrumentalist; Eugene Russo, classical saxophonist; Xavier Rudd, modern one-man band; Colin Stetson, saxophonist and multi-instrumentalist; Clark Terry, jazz trumpet and flugelhorn player and educator, author of Clark Terry's System of Circular Breathing, 1976; Maynard Ferguson, jazz trumpet and flugelhorn player and educator; trombone shorty; Troy Andrews, trombonist and trumpeter; Amy Dixon, saxophonist from Australia; Jonah Parson Johnson, baritone saxophonist and composer; Courtney Pine, jazz saxophonist. E.g. on Modern Day Jazz Stories album; John Sermon, jazz multi-instrumentalist, mostly on saxes and clarinets, on Cloudline Blue and other albums; John Zorn, American avant-garde composer, arranger, producer, saxophonist and multi-instrumentalist; Wynton Marsalis, American jazz and classical trumpeter; Idris Suleiman, jazz trumpeter. E.g. on Hawk Flies High album; Femi Kuti, Nigerian foremost Afrobeat saxophonist, trumpeter, singer and human rights advocate during his concerts and while setting the record for a longest note played on the saxophone. Bibliography: 6 Steps to Mastering Circular Breathing at Dig Project. IDIDJ Australia. Australian Didgeridoo Cultural Hub. Circular Breathing for Harmonica. Learning Circular Breathing. The Circular Breathing Laune Das. How to do circular breathing on saxophone. Kenny G Circular Breathing Lesson at YouTube. Young woman demonstrating circular breathing technique while playing didgeridoo in Carcassonne, France at YouTube in HD.